ESP, English for Specific Purposes, Register and Discourse Analysis. I think in order to understand the journey of language curriculum design from syllabus design, it's important to see what roles were played by English for Specific movement. So as we have already discussed, like ESP emerged, in response to English for general purposes, because in English for general purposes was thought not to meet the needs of people performing their roles in professional life. Okay, so ESP was heavily influenced by register and discourse analysis. And I think it's important to understand these two terms and their role in terms of language curriculum design and ESP. Okay, ESP, register and discourse analysis. They drew. ESP drew heavily from these two notions of language teaching. Okay, and these register and discourse analysis were mainly concerned to choose linguistic items which could be useful for language learners. Okay, so that's actually important to understand how register and discourse analysis, they formed the basis for English for Specific Purposes movement in 1970s. We've got some observations from Allen and Widdowson that register and discourse analysis, they played an important role. Okay, so what's a register analysis? Okay. Register analysis actually focuses at the level of word and sentence, whether the word used is formal or informal. Okay, and it seeks to identify, for example, business letters, academic textbooks, technical writing. So through register analysis, we come to know about what sort of register, whether it's formal or informal or colloquial, is used. Okay, so the main focus of register analysis were the studies of journalism and medicine and law. And as you could see, like the emphasis was sort of on English for specific purposes. Okay, and what sort of patterns were used in the register analysis? So it mainly, emphasized on analyzing lexical items and their functions in language learning, and the verb forms were they take different forms. Okay, and the noun phrases and the tense usage. Okay, so that was some of the patterns which were studied in the register analysis. And then we've got discourse analysis, and that's been defined by Jordan, that discourse analysis examines contexts affecting language use. For example, if you are talking with your friends, you might be using informal language. So this is, your language is determined by the context. And if you are talking to your teacher or a colleague in a specific profession, so you might be using a different variety of language. Okay, so that was how language was determined by its context. And I think it's important, like that discourse analysis looked for, some of the grammatical features affecting the structure and the use of language. So, and the discourse analysis were mainly, focused on finding on some cohesive devices which could create logical and coherent relationship in English for specific purposes. So, how ESP approach was influenced by these two elements then, I think it's important to know that ESP was was influenced by register and discourse analysis in different ways. What registers and discourse patterns to be used, and this is what became the concern of some of the applied linguists then. Okay, and when you think of ESP, English for specific purpose, the very word needs, because English for specific purposes, obviously, a doctor is learning English for her own purpose. On the other hand, the engineer is learning English for her own purpose. So when we think of a specific purpose, so we think of their needs. And that's what actually gave birth to the notion of needs analysis. And I think needs analysis, as we will discuss this in greater length in subsequent sessions, form the basis of language curriculum design.